What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the singles from the compilation album by Daddy Yankee. Basically, this project is called Los Homerun-es, and it came out in the fall, and it came out in the winter of 2003 in Puerto Rico and Latin America, and it came out in like 2005 somewhere in the United States and such. So I would have to say this is a pretty dope concept of an album here. I would have to say this is Daddy Yankee before he kind of blew up with his Barrio Fino album from 2004. That was a big deal with like Latin America and that was a big deal with like Latin America music as far as that pitch kind of happened in the mid 2000s. And Daddy Yankee was definitely a pretty boisterous artist from that particular time period. He did a lot of stuff. He had songs like Rompe and Gasolina, Gangsta Zone, some of those type ones. Some of the singles off of El Cartel, The Big Boss from 2007. He just had a series of dominant albums between like 2004 and 2007. Those are some projects I do remember. A couple years ago, I reviewed the singles. A couple of years ago, I reviewed the singles off of those three particular albums. I would have to say they're definitely some smash hits. Definitely appreciate some of Daddy Yankee's hits from the mid 2000s and things like that as far as that pitch kind of happens. But this is kind of the album before the album, I'd have to say. Daddy Yankee had two other hit albums from like the early 2000s. I'd have to say one of which was El Congri.com, which basically El Congri means the badass. I would have to say pretty good pitch to get that in particular. That's what it means in English. I'd have to say just like Barrio Fino means fine hood in English as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. But I would have to say this is a particular hit project. LCongri.com got him some exposure in the United States, had a number of singles. I'm eventually going to review the singles off that particular one, but it had 6 of them, so I wanted to take a little bit more. But that particular project had 5 or 6 singles, something like that, so I'm going to do that one down the road, I would have to say. But this particular one, but Los Homerun-es was kind of like an in-between type session, kind of between LCongri.com and Barrio Fino from 2004, both of which were pretty big deals of Latin rap kind of albums as far as that pitch kind of has with it. So this is some of the ones that started to get him some exposure and was kind of, and Los Homerun-es kind of served up the alley-oop for Barrio Fino in 2004. So this is a pretty good pitch to get this one in particular. Had 2 singles off it, one of which was Sigaroski, I would have to say, and the other one was Gata Gangster with Don Omar. Now, to my knowledge, I thought that Don Omar and Daddy Yankee kind of had a beef for a good while or something like that. Some of that type pitch. Don Omar was not on Daddy Yankee's later albums from like the mid-late 2000s, I'd have to say, but he is at least on this particular project, so it's interesting enough to kind of get him on here. It's 2 good pitches to kind of get that one. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about these singles. The concept of it, if I spoke Spanish, I would probably review Daddy Yankee's albums full blown, I would have to say, but it's just kind of the concept that I don't. So I just look after. I know enough about some degree of Spanish to be able to see some of these, but this is the concept of it. Some of these are kind of minimalist in terms of like the information that's kind of out about them. I kind of feel like it's here and there. Like I was trying to look up some lyrics because sometimes I like to show off some good lines from these songs that are in Spanish as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. But for the most part, like Gata Gangsta really didn't have that good of a translation in terms of the lyrics. So I'm just going to pick out one particular line from that song that I liked. And it's the same thing with Sigaroski, I would have to say. So it's a pretty good concept to get those. But I do recommend both the singles. So this compilation album, in terms of the singles format for what it did in terms of promotion, I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 10 out of 10. But we'll go ahead and talk about the songs here. So I recommend both Segaroski and Gata Gangster, I would have to say. So talk about Segaroski, basically this song in English means for sure. So that's the English translation of it. I would have to say this is like a pounding kind of dance club flash of a song, I would have to say. Sigaroski is like a pounding kind of dance club flash of a song. I would have to say it's a good companion to Gasolina. I would definitely feel like, and the energy gets crazed pretty quickly, I would have to say, on this particular song. This is a definite highlight, definitely has some thump on here, just a good amount of bass and stuff like that on this particular song. This is just a real fiery type one, definite one of Daddy Yankee's best. I would have to say this is just real hooky and affable. I just would have to say within the pitch. It's kind of a short song. This is kind of one that has like an intro about it. I do like the song after the intro is done. I would have to say it was just kind of a concept. There is a Sigaroski remix, I would have to say, but I like the original better. I would have to suppose just about that particular pitch. This is up there with Rompe, Gasolina, some of those type ones, Gangsta Zone, and certain pitches, I would have to say. Basically, just another pounding dance club hopper that hits pretty damn heavily, I'd have to suppose. Definitely a good concept to get that one in particular. It's just another stock Daddy Yankee hit, I'd have to say. So the translation of some of the lyrics to English, I would have to say there's a good line on this particular song where Daddy Yankee says about some chick in the song that he says what she has behind her is bigger than the back of a Yukon. So that's a pretty good concept. That's a funny line to kind of get that in particular. Just kind of not too often that folks kind of mention Yukons like that, I would have to suppose. So it's a dope enough concept to get that in particular. Apparently that chick had an onion, something like that. Pretty good concept to get that one in particular. So I did like that line on that particular song. It's good enough concept. But once again, there aren't too many super good translations of the lyrics of these particular songs, I'd have to say, especially Gata Gangsta. But second single that was fused with the music video of Sigaroski was Gata Gangster. And basically this song in English means gangster cat, which is basically for the ladies, I would have to say. Basically like a bad bitch, something like that. you know, Gangster Cat is basically like a bad bitch, Bonnie Dear, Clyde, some stuff like that. I would have to suppose pretty good concept. Get that one in particular. So this song is like a louder kind of bravado dance cut. I would have to say this is just like a red hot kind of commotion of a song. I would definitely feel like, and this is just some regular outing fun. I would have to say, and it's a pretty stellar song. Definitely appreciate this one in particular. It's just a good enough concept to get this good 1-2 punch. I'm glad that Daddy Yankee came out with 2 good dance spoilers as far as that particular pitch kind of happens. These are just some nice ones. I do think I like Sigarowski a little bit better. That one's just a little bit more affable and a little bit more ready to go in terms of like the casual kind of market as far as that pitch kind of happens. But I do like Got to Gangsta. I would say this is a pretty nice one. Both good 1-2 punch to kind of get for like some dance club craze. I would just have to say this is a good fiery kind of night to hear like tons of these songs add in Gasolina, Rompe, some of those type ones on top of that. You just would have a pretty crazy night. I would say just some classic kind of 2000s type fare from Daddy Yankee as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. And then one of the lines I enjoyed from this particular song is the part where he says, she has me crazy with the Versace clothes. So this is definitely like a badass type chick that likes to stunt and floss a little bit and look glamorous as far as that particular kind of pitch. As far as that particular kind of pitch goes along with it, I would have to say. So it's pretty dope concept to get that one in particular. So that's basically the singles off this particular project, Los Homerun-es. I would have to say pretty dope enough concept to kind of get that 10 out of 10 in terms of score. I would have to say these singles are both pretty fiery and have a good format about them. Some good hoppers to get the asses shaking and stuff like that, I'd have to suppose. So it's pretty dope concept to get that in particular. The social score, I'm going to go ahead and give like a 10 out of 10 also, because these are just some definite highlights. I do feel like Sigarowski is definitely one of Daddy Yankee's career highlights. I would have to say pretty good pitch, an early kind of hit from him, an early kind of international hit for him that crossed over into the United States market, just like elcongri.com. I'd have to say that definitely had some hits on there as well, but I'd have to say it's a dope enough concept. Got to Gangsta is a pretty solid one. It's a good follow-up. It's a good 1-2 punch with that particular pitch as far as that kind of happened. Almost makes you wish that there was like a third single, something like that, but it's just kind of an in-between type one just because he had just dropped elcongri.com and he was getting ready to drop Barrio Fino. But I do feel like I would almost have to damn near say I don't know the album full blown, but I'd have to say it feels like Barrio Fino is like a classic just within the pitch of its impact and stuff like that. So this is just kind of like a primer, kind of an appetizer for before getting to that particular product, I'd have to say. But I am going to have to get to elcongri.com. We'll get to some more of these down the road, I'd have to say, but it's definitely pretty highlight type stuff here, and this is more Daddy Yankee and like his prime era as far as that pitch kind of has with it. So I do highly recommend this project for some more dance hoppers in terms of singles.